Erev Tov, Rabotai. I want to tell you something which is important to understand. Now we see, right, that Trump's was inaugurated today. Now he's the president. Baruch Hashem, he's better than the old guy, right? For sure, a lot better. But anyway, right, there's one thing a person has to know. That also we read in this Parsha Shavua this week, which is Va'era, right? The Kadosh Baruch Hu told to Moshe Rabbeinu, you know what, I want you to go to tell Paro. Tell him, that let my people go. And if you don't, there's going to be problems. You're going to have all kinds of plagues, right? Makot, all kinds of things. It's true, he had to tell him all these things. But nevertheless, right, one thing he told him, he told Moshe Rabbeinu, is that when you go to Paro, you have to give him kavod. Why? Because he's malchut, he's melech. So we see from there that even if the melech is a rasha, like, Paro was a big rasha, doesn't matter. Still he's called malchut, so you have to give him kavod. You have to treat him with kavod. And this is what happened, we find in the story, as Moshe Rabbeinu was talking to Paro, and all these things, in the end, Paro got very angry at him, and he told him, get out of here, I don't want to see you again, and if you come back one more time, you're going to be dead. He warned him, right? He threatened him. He says, next time I see you, you're not going to be alive. That's it. Don't come here to see me again. So nevertheless, when Moshe Rabbeinu answered Paro, even though Paro, threatened him, nevertheless he answered him with kavod. He didn't want to insult him straight out. So he spoke to him in a way which is like implying, something, but not exactly insulting him straight in his face. So you see from there, that a person has to give kavod to the malchut. He has to. This is the way it is. So the same thing also applies today. If you see somebody, who's a melech, most countries we don't have melech today. They have president, or you have prime minister. It doesn't matter. It's the same. Why? Because since HaKadosh Baruch Hu put in his hands, the power to run this country, he was chosen from Hashem to do this. You should know, by the way, it's not a coincidence. You can't say, this guy got in because he had a lot of money, or he had he had a lot of power, he had a lot of connections. It doesn't matter. If he's there, and he's the melech of this country, he's the president, or whatever it is, Hashem chose him to be melech over there. It doesn't matter what happened, So they say the malchut of Shamayim and the malchut of the Eretz, is connected one to the other. So whatever the malchut is over here, it's also connected to what's up there, So therefore a person has to give kavod to malchut. I remember there was one guy, sorry.
Today, Trump recognized about this. He said, when I was assassinated, Hashem saved me, and that's the reason why he put me over here.
Right, of course. Baruch Hashem, it's a very good thing. It's a very good thing, but Hashem should give him the wisdom and success to succeed, B'ezrat Hashem, to do the right thing, the will of Hashem. That's the way it is. There's a story about this, by the way. Brought down in the book of Daniel. What happened was that it's in the So what happens over there? The prophets were telling the king of Paras, the first king his name was there was first Dariavesh, and then there was Koresh afterwards. So in the prophet of Ishayahu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wrote to Koresh. He says, I want you to help the Jews to build the Bet HaMikdash. I command you to do it. And you know what it calls him over there, Koresh? It calls him Mashiach. You are the Mashiach. You have to save the Jewish people and send them to build the Bet HaMikdash. I want you to do this. This is my job. I'm sending you to do it. And he did it, by the way. He whatever Hashem told him, he did. They say, he didn't do everything that Hashem told him, but he did a lot of things. He didn't do everything, but that's also good, that whatever he did is also not bad, right? So same thing, like Kadosh Baruch Hu sometimes sends a goyish king, to do the will of Hashem. And he does it. This is what we will see today. The same thing. But anyway, right? I want to tell you something interesting. That there was one rabbi. I remember a couple of years ago. And he was talking. He's like Baal Tshuva, this guy. So he doesn't know so much Torah. He's only been learning a few years. He doesn't know so much. So what he was doing is talking very disrespectfully about Bibi, the prime minister of Israel. Talking like very bad. Very bad things. It's easy to talk bad things, but the question is, do you know what you're doing, do you know what you're saying? So, I wrote against that, I posted, I said, you're not allowed to do this, because after all, He's Malchut, he's the Prime Minister of Israel. What can you do? Hashem chose him to be a Prime Minister, Okay, he's not the most religious guy. He's not the biggest chacham. He's not the biggest Haredi. But still, he's the leader of the Jewish people. What can you do? You have to give him kavod. He's Malchut. Doesn't matter. It's the same thing. You're not allowed to disgrace, somebody like this, in a position like this. So, I tried to make him understand that. I hope he understood, then he stopped doing it. He stopped making fun of him, mocking him like, it's not nice to do it. He was calling him idiot, writing, on the internet. He's idiot, he's a general, you don't speak like that, but somebody like that. It's not that kavod. We get angry, remember when Obama was the president, right? He was disrespecting, Bibi, treating him with disrespect. And we were getting angry, but when we do it, then we don't understand, sometimes we don't realize we're also doing the same thing, So, you cannot disrespect the Malchut. This is the way it is, So a person always has to remember that. I remember when I was younger in a kollel in Eretz Israel, there was one rabbi that I was with at that time. He told me something interesting. He said, that if the Melech of Israel, he's a Rasha, you don't have to give him kavod. This is what he was saying, like this. So I told him, I said, where do you see that from? Where do you find this, that if the Melech of Israel is a Rasha, we don't give him kavod. So he showed me a story, which is brought down in the book of Melachim, in the book of Kings, So over there, what does it say? It says over there that Achav, who was a big Rasha, the Melech Israel, Avodah Zarah. He was Avodah Zarah, the worst of the worst, the biggest Rasha, Achav. So what happened was, right, that when Eliyahu came, to rebuke Achav, what happened was that in the end, Achav did teshuvah a little bit. He did teshuvah when Eliyahu rebuked him. Spoke to him strong. So he did teshuvah. So they say that once the story goes like this, I'll tell you the whole story, right? And you understand. So what happened was like this: right? Achav, he was doing avodah zarah over there. They had like these big churches, with doing avodah zarah with all kinds of priests, all these kinds of things, right? Right, Baal, yeah, exactly.
It's because of his wife. Exactly,
you're right. So what happened was like this, right? That Eliyahu told all of them, I want you to assemble together, and let's see who's right, Is the Baal the real God or Hashem is the real God? Let's see, who's the real God. We're gonna do experiment and we'll find out. So what happened was that Eliyahu proved to them, that Hashem is the real God and their God is no God, right? It's all fake. It's all fake. All their gods are fake, by the way. You should know. Doesn't matter. Some people they think, oh yeah, Islam, it's a religion. It's not good religion. It's fake. Islam is fake, and the Christians are also fake. It's all fake. Everything is fake. There's nothing good about them. So don't think, it's good religion. It's not good religion. It's bad religion. Avodah zarah, kfirah. It's heresy. That's what it is. So don't think, things like this. It's not true. It's not true. Anyway, right, when I'm getting back to what we said, right, that Achav proved to everybody, that Hashem is really right, Hu Elohim, right? And they're all Avodah Zarah, they're worthless, worth nothing. So what happened was that when Achav saw this, he was there, So when he saw this whole thing, he did teshuvah, He said, oh wow, I guess you were right. I was wrong, So when he did teshuvah, Eliyahu, what it says in the pasuk? That he ran before him, like when he was going with his chariot, Merkava, Achav, Eliyahu was running in front of him to give him kavod, kavod. Can you imagine? Eliyahu Navi, running before this Rasha, but he did tshuva, he was tzaddik. So what happened was, right, it says over there, so you see, right, that Eliyahu also gave kavod to the Malchut. He gave kavod to Achav. He ran in front of him like this, So from there, we see, right, that you give kavod to Malchut, even if he's a Rasha, but he did teshuvah. So it says the Malbim over there, the commentary, the Malbim. It says the Malbim over there, he says that because Achav did teshuvah, that's why Eliyahu gave him kavod. But before that, before he did teshuvah, he wasn't giving him kavod. He was being mezalzel. He wasn't giving him any kavod. So this rabbi wanted to learn from there, that if the Melech Yisrael is a Rasha, that you don't have to give him kavod. So that's also maybe, for today, what we have today, right? The prime ministers, they're not tzaddikim. Let's face it, right? They're not big tzaddikim, these prime ministers, but they are what they are, right? That's what we have right now, that's all we have. So I remember, that one time I saw the Midrash, it disproves this rabbi. It proves him wrong. I'll tell you a story. We'll stop here, I'll tell you a nice story here. So what happened was like this, right? In the first time of the first temple, the Malchut split up into two, There was Yerovam ben Nebat in the north, right? And we had Rechavam in the south, right? Yehuda and Israel. In the north was Israel, in the south there was two kingdoms, two Malchuyot. So what happened was there was always wars going on between them, Milchama, all the time. Killing each other, civil war, can you imagine? Many people died like this, Jews, many Jews were being killed. So what happened was, one time there was a king, right, in Yehuda, and there was Yerovam ben Nebat. He was the king of the northern kingdom, right? And so the kingdom of Yehuda, his name was Avia. Just remembered. So this Avia, right? What happened was that he made milchama with Yerovam ben Nebat. There was a milchama between them. So what happened? Yerovam ben Nebat, he had a bigger malchut. He had 10 tribes, and this guy only has 2 tribes. So he has a smaller malchut. So Yerovam ben Nebat, he had in his army 800,000 people, almost 1 million people. Can you imagine? When they made the war. And Yehuda in the south, they only had 400,000, half. So, can you imagine? 800,000, 400,000, right? Double. The army is double, So Avia came out to the war against Yerovam ben Nebat. And he told him, he said, he started to announce in front of them, like when they were standing next to each other. He announced Avia and he said like this. He says, do you know who we are and we know who you are? Let's realize what's going on here, right? We serve Hashem, we have Bet HaMikdash, we have Kohanim, we have Torah. We keep all these things. What do you have? You have Avodah Zarah, you have Rashaim, you have fake prophets, right? Nevi Sheker. Right? Everything is Sheker by you. All Avodah Zarah over there by you. So he told him, he says, who do you think is going to win? We're going to win. You have a bigger army, but we're coming with the name of Hashem. You're coming with Avodah Zarah. Who's going to win? He says, we're going to beat you. That's what he told him. Avia. So what happened? They got into the war, They started the war. Who won? Avia, beat Yerovam. Even though he had 800,000 people, almost 1 million people. Can you imagine in his army like this, So how many people died that day? They say about 250,000 people died that day in that war. 250,000 people died. Just in one day. Probably even more. I don't remember the exact number. But anyway, the point is, right, that so Avia, beat Yerovam ben Nebat. And so Yerovam ben Nebat, ran away in disgrace, and that's it. The war was finished. So now what happened was, it says in the Pasuk after, it says that he died. The king, the Melech, he died. But it doesn't say who it was, Was it Avia who died or Yerovam? It doesn't say who it was. So comes the Gemara and says, who it was? It wasn't Yerovam that died. It was Avia. Avia died. But he was a tzaddik. So what happened? Why did he die? There's a reason for everything, right? He was a tzaddik. So you know what the answer in the Gemara? The reason why Avia died is because he spoke in front of them, disgraced the Melech, Yerovam ben Nebat. He disgraced them, called him a Rasha, called him Oved Avodah Zarah, like this, disgraced the Melech in public. And even though Yerovam ben Nebat was a Rasha, but to disgrace him in public like this is not allowed to do with Malchut. Not allowed to do that. So that's why he died. Can you imagine? Because he disgraced the Malchut of Yerovam ben Nebat. He was a Rasha. Hashem killed him because of this. Can you imagine? So what do you see from here? That this rabbi was wrong. That even if the Melech is a Rasha, doesn't matter, right? President, right? The Prime Minister, even if he's a Rasha, you have to give him kavod. Because it's the Malchut of Haaretz, it's like Malchut Shemayim. Same thing, So you have to give kavod. There's no way to change that. HaKadosh Baruch Hu always wants us to give kavod to Malchut, right? So therefore, a person has to be careful. In America, we have like free speech. We can say whatever we want. We can call him an idiot. We can call him an imbecile. We can call him a rasha. We can call him this. But it's not proper to speak like that about Melech. About his president or prime minister. You have to speak with kavod. You can say something, criticize. Yeah, you can say. Criticize. But don't speak to him like he's some kind of a street punk. You don't talk to Melech like this. Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen, amen. רבי חנניה בן שומר, רצה הקדוש ברוך הוא לישראל, לפיכך ירבה להם צלמת שנים אדוני חפץ למען צדקו יגדיל תורה וידיר.